So hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. So my name is Katie and today I'm going to be talking about how to read the Cosmere by Brandon Sanderson. If you've been on this channel for a hot second, you know that Sanderson is like my all-time favourite author. And I wanted to talk today about his Cosmere, so that is his adult fantasy books. If you're anything like me, I read The Final Empire and then I was like, oh, I enjoyed this, I'll go online and just see what other people are saying about it. And then like 16 seconds later, you're like, what the F is the Cosmere? So yeah, so I just wanted to talk a bit about it today, and also how the kind of reading order for his books. So I'm going to be sharing 3 ways to read the books. So I'm going to do publication order, the way I did it, and my recommended. So the Cosmere is basically all the books are set in the same kind of universe, and they're all set on different planets, each different series. And all the different planets they're quite different magic systems, but they are connected if you sort of know what you're looking for. And there are these like god type things on each planet called shards. So basically the kind of basics of the Cosmere is many years ago there was a kind of god creature, I don't know, being called Adolosium. That might be a terrible butchering of the pronunciation, but so and then he was basically killed by 16 people and split into the 16, so each of these people then became a shard, so they have different powers. So say like in Mistborn, I think there's ruin and preservation, they're the powers, and autonomy and cultivation, and honour I think is one. Stormlight Archive, but anyway, yeah, I digress. So yeah, so that's kind of a bit of basic about what the Cosmere is. So first I'm going to talk about the kind of recommended reading order that I would recommend you read them in. So this is kind of what, from my personal experience and what I've heard other people saying, is probably the kind of order that I would recommend you read them in. So to start with, I would say start with the original Mistborn trilogy. No, I'm upside down. So the first book in there, that is The Final Empire. So this is a really great place to start. I think it's a very like universally well loved book, and also I think it kind of showcases Sanderson in a really nice way, so you can get a sense of if you like his writing style and if you'd like his magic systems and sort of the pacing as well. So yeah, so that is a really great place to start. So this one follows Vin, who is kind of a street orphan, and she basically discovers she's a Mistborn. So in this world you have different powers based on metals, so you kind of ingest the metals and the different metals give you different powers. So if you're a Mistborn, then you can ingest all the metals and get all the powers from that, or the alternative is a misting, so that's where you can just get powers from one metal. So yeah, so Vin discovers she's a Mistborn, and then she kind of gets recruited by Kelsier, who's the other main character, and his crew to kind of take down the Lord Ruler, who's like the big bad. So that's the first Mistborn era, so this is era 1. So yeah, so that is The Final Empire, The Well of Ascension, and The Hero of Ages. So yeah, so this is a really great trilogy, and it kind of stands on its own as a trilogy as well, which is great, and you get a really satisfying conclusion in The Hero of Ages. So yeah, so I think my favourite of this trilogy is probably The Well of Ascension. I think I'm going to do like a ranking all the Cosmere books video as well, just because it's fun. So yeah, so that is that one. So after that, I would recommend reading Warbreaker by oh, what a surprise, Brandon Sanderson. But so this one is a standalone, and it follows Ciri and Vivenna, who are 2 sisters, and basically Vivenna's been prepared her whole life to go to this god king to be the queen, because they have this treaty with this like 2 kingdoms. But then one day her father decides, oh no, I'm going to send Ciri instead. So Ciri goes to the god king and to marry him, and basically she's completely unprepared. So she's trying to navigate this like court of gods, and Vivenna decides that she's going to follow her to this city, and then Vivenna kind of gets embroiled in the rebellion there. There is a lot more going on, but yeah, this one is really good. So I'd recommend reading this one after the Mistborn books. You could start with this one as well, but yeah, it's a bit on the slower side compared to the Mistborn books, which I really like, but you might not. So yeah, so that one next. Next I would recommend Elantris. So that is, I'll put a picture there because I have it on my Kindle. So that one follows this kind of city, and there's Elantris, which is kind of part of the city, which has been it's sort of not quite the plague, but I think it's called the Shroud, which infects some people. So every time they get an injury, they don't heal. So like if you stub your toe, then you then have that pain forever, which sounds terrible really. But it follows Rowden, who's the prince, and he wakes up one day with a shard. So he goes into the kind of Elantris city. And it also follows Serene, who is from another kingdom, and she's meant to be marrying Rowden. Before she gets there, Rowden gets the shard, so he's away. So she's navigating the kind of politics, and Rowden's kind of navigating the politics of the kind of dead city. So I'd recommend that one. That is also a standalone, I think. Yeah, and that is also, Elantris I don't think is his most loved one, but I really enjoyed it. I think it's a much quieter novel, but it just kind of explores kind of the spirit of humanity really well, I think, and just kind of working together and having faith in everything working out. So that is that one. So then next I would recommend Mistborn Era 2. So these are much shorter. So these are the Alloy of Law, which is the first one, and then the Shadows of Self, I don't know what they were in then, Shadows of Self, which is the second one, and the Bands of Mourning, which is the third one. So these are set in the same world as the Mistborn Era 1 books, but kind of about 300 years later, I think, and the events of the ending of the first trilogy have kind of deeply impacted the world as it is now. These ones are kind of lighter, they're kind of like a western-y type thriller. They're really good. They're quite a different vibe from the first era, so I think if you read the first ones and then go into these, expect something quite different. But the characters are really great in this one as well. I think Sanderson does characters so well. And so we follow Wax, he was this outlaw type, like sheriff, cowboy, not quite sure. They have the and he's just returning to the city to kind of investigate these murders, and I really enjoy these ones as well. The characters from the first era are they're like legends, so they all kind of like look up to them and whatnot, so that is really good. And then finally I would recommend the Stormlight Archive, which is my favourite, but I would say read this one like last as part of the series, because it's more kind of there's a lot more going on, there's a lot more plot threads and stuff, but if you've got a sense of Sanderson's writing, I think you'll find it a lot easier to follow, and also you'll trust him, because the first half of The Way of Kings, this is the first half, is quite exposition heavy. Like, it's definitely worth getting through, but I think it just takes a little bit of time. The writing style is super easy to like digest, but I think it just takes a bit of time to get into. So that one is The Way of Kings is the first one, and then Words of Radiance is the second, and Oathbringer is the third. Follow Kaladin, who is a kind of slave, and he's on his way to the Shattered Plains, which is where there's a big war going on. So that's kind of how it starts, and the war is basically, in the prologue of The Way of Kings, this kind of culture of people called the Parshendi murder the king of another group of people called the Alethi, and that's kind of what kicks off this war that's been, and then it skips to 5 years later and the war's still going on. So you're following Kaladin. And also you follow another character called Dalinar, who's kind of a prince in the war, so he's kind of a leader. And also Shallan, who's a different character, she's like not really connected to the war. Into the city to meet Jasna, who's another character. She's kind of the princess of so she's the daughter of the king who gets murdered. And Shallan is going basically to steal one of Jasna's possessions, so that's an interesting storyline. So that's these ones. So I would recommend reading these last, because there are characters, this is kind of like the ultimate crossover books. There are characters that pop up in these ones that are in other books. So like So I might do a little section at the end of this video actually with different characters that appear in different books. I mean, I'm sure I won't get everything, just the ones I spotted. Also there is Edge Dancer, which is a novella, and I would recommend reading that between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, because that's when this is set basically. And also you get some context for Oathbringer on certain characters, so Lift and Seth. So yeah, this one just kind of bridges the gap between those two. Publication order, because I know some people like to read things in publication order. I'm terrible at reading series in proper orders. Like the Shadowhunter books were chaos when I read them. But I actually managed, I think I read these in a decent order, but we'll talk about that in a bit. So publication order I think is Elantris would be first, and then the Mistborn Era 1 books. So that's the Final Empire and the Will of Ascension. So this is kind of similar to the recommended order, just slightly different. And then it would say Warbreaker, and then the Way of Kings. So it's all chaos down here. Got Sanderson books strewn everywhere. Yeah, so the next ones get a bit more interwoven in publication order. Then I would read The Aloe of Law. So that is the first book in the Mistborn Era 2. Yeah, Words of Radiance, which is the second book in the Stormlight Archive. And then the next two books in the Era 2, which is Shadows of Self and Bands of Mourning. And then finally Oathbringer. So yeah, so that's kind of, if you wanted to be really pedantic about it, I think there are some like nuggets, which I would say if you wanted to kind of split up the big Stormlight Archive books with the shorter little Mistborn Era 2 books, that might be a good way to do it. And obviously, so in Bands of Mourning and Oathbringer especially, you do start to get kind of the wider Cosmere stuff. So you start to see the linking. There's more kind of crossovers. Yeah, I didn't really understand the Cosmere properly until I read Oathbringer. So yeah, so don't worry if you have no clue what's going on, because I don't really. But so yeah, so that is that one. And yeah, Bands of Mourning. And then finally I would recommend, so I forgot to mention this in my recommended reading order, but Arcanum Unbounded, which is the short story collection, so I'll put a picture because I have it on my Kindle. So that does feature Edge Dancer, but it also features a bunch of other short stories. There's some Mistborn ones and some Elantris ones, and also some completely random ones. So I would read that last. I think that is what I did, and also where I would recommend putting it. So that one, you do get a bit more context for the Cosmere stuff, and yeah, so that is that one. So lastly, I'm going to talk about the order I read them in. So this is a little bit chaotic, but it's not too bad compared to what I sometimes do. I'm not the best at reading series in order. But so yeah, so I started with The Final Empire, which yeah, I think this is like probably the best place to start. And then I read The Well of Ascension. So that was the next one. So I read that on holiday, so that one has a special place in my heart. And then I actually read Warbreaker. So yeah, so I listened to this one on audio, which I really enjoyed. And then I read The Hero of Ages. So that's that one. And then it's hard to remember. And then I think I read The Way of Kings. So that is that one. And then Words of Radiance. So that's that one. And then I read Mistborn Era 2. So yeah, so it's kind of a bit bitty. Yeah, so that's that one. And then I read Oathbringer. And then I read Elantris, and then Arcanum Unbounded. So I quite enjoyed that order. I think the key points that I did well, this is turning into reflections, was to read Warbreaker before the Stormlight Archive. I think I probably would recommend reading Elantris though before Oathbringer, because there is a little Easter egg. That is my recommended orders, and I just wanted, just in case you read the books and you didn't pick up on a couple of things, I just wanted to mention some of the characters that feature. So if you haven't read the Cosmere, thank you so much for watching, because the next part might get a little bit spoilery. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, and yeah, so please let me know as well if you end up reading any of the books, because I love seeing people getting into Sanderson books. So yeah, so thank you. If you're still here, I'm just going to mention, so in Words of Radiance, Nightblood from Warbreaker, his appearance towards the end, I think, yeah, when Seth, it's the sword that talks to Seth basically. And also Zahale, who is Adeline's swordmaster, is actually Vasha from Warbreaker as well. So that's that one. And then in Oathbringer, I'll find it. In Oathbringer, High Marshal Azor is Vivenna from Warbreaker. And also in Oathbringer, there's a scene where they're, I think it's when they're in like Kaladin, Adeline and Shallan and Azor are in Shadesmart, and they come across a painting which is actually Lightsong sees it in Warbreaker as well. And also I think one of the characters is talking about Merciful Domi, thing from Elantris, so that is interesting. And also in The Way of Kings, there are some characters who are hunting down Hoyd, who I think one of them is Demu, I don't really know how to say it, from the Mistborn Era 1 books. And also I didn't notice this, but I think one of them is Galadin from Elantris as well, but that might be wrong. But if you have read the Cosmere and you would like to tell me about any of the little Easter eggs that I missed, because honestly I'm not the best, but please do let me know, because I love seeing the like little connections. So yeah, so they were just the ones that I wanted to mention that I'd noticed. So yeah, and of course Hoyd as well is in like all the books. So yeah, so thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And yeah, so goodbye, and I'll see you next time.